Welcome to Peter and Roughie's Football Show, sponsored by Arnold Clark. It's Tuesday, the 27th of October. Alan Rough, Darren Jackson, Hugh McDonald with me, Peter Martin. Delighted to have your company. Thank you for joining us. Don't forget to like, share and follow us on our Facebook and hit that subscribe button on the YouTube. We'll hear from Neil Lennon. He is out with all guns blazing, not to be missed what the Celtic manager has to say today from the press conference earlier. We'll hear from Lee Griffiths. We'll also hear from Robbie Nielsen ahead of that big cup semi-final, and of course we'll talk about some disciplinary measures which have been sorted out. Could fans be coming back into the grounds in the next month? We certainly hope so. That's maybe a little bit of positive news for us, and it is of course again a worry because we could be into tighter restrictions coming up over the next couple of days, which is a burden for one of our pundits, because obviously Ruffy doesn't like a Saturday and doesn't like a Monday, Hugh. So clearly, I think you and Darren are teetering on the brink of him not liking a Tuesday either.
That's right. That's it. Ruffy, the boomtown rat of the Peter and Ruffy show. He doesn't like. He doesn't like Monday. He doesn't like Mondays anymore. You know.
Yeah. You tell everybody why I don't like Mondays.
Well, you might as well tell us. Go on, Ruffy.
It's very intellectual. If you're watching the telly from 8 o'clock, you get University Challenge, you get Contact, and you get Mastermind. So by 9 o'clock, your head's nipping.
Yeah, well, let's
you know what Sky Sports News, Ruffy, no?
That's what I was thinking, Darren. You don't get Sky Sports News, Ruffy, but let's not knock University Challenge, because it's something that I think the Scottish are winning at the moment. Edinburgh University flying the flag. So well done to them. Well done to them. I never thought I'd mention Edinburgh University in the football show, but we are doing that. A big hi to everybody. Of course, we mentioned there at the top Neil Lennon. He's talking ahead of the match coming up in the Europa League against Lille and the small matter of that Scottish Cup semi-final. But the main thing on his mind is the criticism that's come his way, the criticism that's not only been put towards his team, but certain individuals in their performance. But I think the first thing Neil Lennon was talking about was the fact that in some quarters, now we're going to try and have a balance on this and read out as many messages as possible, but in some quarters, people have been slightly hysterical, Ruffy, on suggestions that he should be sacked.
Yeah, I think right at the very beginning, starting the show this season, I think we all let everybody know that this was going to be a massive season for hysteria. I didn't think it would have kicked in so soon, but we know what it's going to be like as the days and months go by. So I think we all knew this was going to happen. I personally think it's over the top. You don't like getting beaten by your biggest rivals, there's no doubt about that. And obviously the European, defeat on the back of that, and then the disappointment of the Aberdeen one. But I just think there's a long, long way to go, and you keep saying you don't hand out trophies in October or November, and I agree with that. I've seen so many managers getting sacked, so early in the season for whatever reason, and it is hysteria. And some of it is over the top. I mean, I touched on it yesterday. I'm not going to mention them again because you gave me a row yesterday. But some of the reporting on particular game at the weekend was way above the board. It was, for me, it wasn't worth watching. It was just so focused on one man and one man only, and that was Neil Lennon. Well, the game's gone on. And I just thought it was over the top. And Neil Lennon's big enough to know. He's big enough to know that this is the scenario and this is what's going to be. It's 10 in a row, and you just have to strap yourself in, because this is what it's going to be like for the next 6 or 7 months.
Well, I'm going to cut to the chase on this, and I'll get Darren's thoughts on it as well. Hugh, it's not, and I wasn't telling Ruffy off. What I don't want to get involved in, I don't want to get involved in a situation where suddenly the media starts belting each other because one pundit says this and another pundit says that. I don't think that's a healthy situation. And to be honest with you, I don't think fans give two hoots whether one pundit wants a manager to be sacked and another one, has a different opinion. It's all about opinions, and everybody in every quarter, whether it's broadcast, written, radio, the digital platform, which is gaining ever more prominence. I think everybody's got their place, and for us to start fighting among each other, I think is totally unhealthy.
I agree. I mean, I think it's pointless as well. I mean, if you look at it as a journalist, the whole interesting thing about the fascinating thing about this, there's no way this is just a media construct, Peter. In fact, I would argue that, and I'm going to put the tin helmet on, but I would argue that in many occasions the media have been quite restrained over the Neil Lennon situation in comparison to what's been happening on Celtic websites, for example. I mean, that where even well before the Aberdeen game and even before the Rangers game, there was real discontent. Again, we've got to be careful here. It's not amongst all all Celtic supporters, all Celtic supporters, but it's on certain Celtic sites. So there was that narrative. I mean, the interesting thing is the narrative exists, and how do you address it? And I think the interesting thing is the way Celtic's addressed it, because it's become very clear that I think in Kenny Dalglish's comments and in Neil Lennon's comments today, the attitude is right. Let's take this full on. Let's attack this. Let's go for this. Because remember, Lenny wasn't asked about his job on Sunday night after the Aberdeen game, which I mean, if the media were really going after him, surely that would have been a question in the Zoom call on Sunday night. But they've decided, I think Celtic have decided, right, let's take this on full frontal. Kenny Dalglish comes out and says, Lenny should not be sacked. Lenny comes on and takes it full on today. We're going to hear from him today. Really, and absolutely, as you and I know, Peter, I think that was a press conference for the ages. One where you go, goodness gracious. So I think that is the attitude now, is right. Let's address this situation and let's go aggressively after it.
Yeah, well, Dougie Little says an opinion can be biased, Peter, and in some cases it's not a balanced view. Yeah, you're absolutely right, Dougie, but you have to draw your own conclusions. Everybody, as a fan, has to look at things and think, is this fair? Is this justified? Is the person who's a pundit? Certainly on this show, we try our best to give an opinion. Some we like, some we don't. But here's first of all what Neil Lennon has to say, and then I'll get Darren's thoughts on his first call, which is Neil Lennon talking about the fact that some people have been calling for him to be sacked.
I don't have anyone coming up to me and going, I want you sacked, blah, blah, blah. And there's no justification at the minute for me to be sacked. None whatsoever. So people can put out in the media what they want. They need to behave themselves. They need to start acting professionally. They need to stop telling porkies. And they need to stop digging out players when they've been players themselves and didn't have a great time the whole way through the time here either.
Well, now, he's talking about one particular player for the comments that he's made, Darren. That's why he's had a go there. If you read between the lines, he's talking about one particular player who's had an opinion, and he's not happy about it. But he's also not happy about the fact that, if there are people calling for him to be sacked, I think it's ludicrous.
I think it's absolutely mental, Peter. And people will message in, Peter, he's going to say that. I've no reason to say that. When Neil got the job, I think I was truthful in saying he was very, very lucky to get the job. Right place, right time. But he took it on and he did extremely well. They talk about tactics. That when they came back last year, they changed it to a 3-5-2. And that won the league. And because just now, the biggest thing, Peter, is he can't get his two strikers up front. That is the main problem. Yes, probably the goalkeeper, Forster, they've not got him. But the two strikers they need. When you look at the clubs around the country just now, everyone thinks Liverpool will win the league, no bother. No, Van Dijk gets injured. Well, Liverpool might not win the league. Aguero, De Bruyne, Silva's missing from Man City, struggling. So you miss big players, and Lenny's missing those two big players. I think it's incredible. Now, everyone's allowed their opinion. We all have our opinion on here. Sometimes people don't like it, and we're not allowed their opinion, but obviously that's what we're on the show for. I just think it's madness that, yes, everyone will say you can't get beat off Rangers. but it can happen. You play AC Milan, who are top of the league in their league, so they're flying just now. You play an Aberdeen team who's had good results. You go to Pittodrie, it can be a hard game. But we know 3 games in a row, it's been said, it's a crisis. If you don't win in 3 games for Celtic or Rangers, it's a crisis. And it is for Lenny. But he's big enough to handle this. I can't see why he's coming out and biting at people. He should take it. He should look in his dressing room and say, I have got a squad there that I believe can win the league. Shane Duffy just now is a problem, but I think he will definitely come good.
Well, interesting you say that. We'll have, because if I'm going to hold my hands up, I am one of the critics of Shane Duffy right now, but we'll get to Shane Duffy in a moment. Robert Richardson says Lennon is protesting too much. Robert says, I haven't seen anything in the media about sacking Lenny. Robert, you must have been away on holiday for the last 2 or 3 days, because Neil Lennon came out again with another salvo at a couple of newspapers who've been running a poll about him being sacked.
You know, I've seen 2 newspapers run polls. I've never seen it before on whether I should be sacked or not. Never seen it before in 20 years I've been up here. So who's driving that? It's not the Celtic fans, Ronnie. And I think there are a minority of our support need to calm down. Need to let the players settle. It's been very disruptive the last few weeks. I'm not using that as an excuse, but you know, our form going into the international break compared to the form coming back out of it, it's different because of all the disruption that we've had.
Hugh, do the Celtic fans need to calm down, that minority that he's talking about?
Peter, there's no way the Celtic fans are going to calm down. It's just, I mean, and you know something? Nobody in Scotland knows more that than Neil Lennon. I mean, it's just that's like saying we need to have really good weather in Glasgow this afternoon because I want to get the taps off and go out to the King George V Park outside. It's just not going to happen. This is the crux of the matter, Peter. The crux of the matter is that this is a season, you know, that we haven't had for a long, long, long time. We have, whatever way you cut it or dice it, we have a title race. In my view, and we've been consistent in this, we've never really had a title race since, 2011. So in a decade, we've also got on the line history on the line. We've got history on the line because no matter what outsiders might think about, what does 10 in a row matter? What kind of trophy do you get for 10 in a row? That doesn't matter. It's about 10 in a row is a historic achievement. It's been put out there. It's what Celtic fans want. I maintain, and I think anybody knows anything about Scotland, I maintain if you said to the vast majority of Celtic fans, you can win the Europa League or you can win 10 titles, we know what the answer is going to be. I think we know what the answer is. So that is the atmosphere in which we're operating at the moment. To say to people, calm down, you're not going to get any, there's not going to be any calmness about this, Peter.
No, absolutely. And I take that point because quite simply, you know, again, you know, when we were asking him questions on this call today, I did mention that to him. I did say to him, listen, that, you know, he thinks it's media driven. And again, I came back at him and said, you know, it's not that it's media driven. It is the season of all seasons. It will become even more poison if you're reacting early on, you know, as an indication of how much of a frenzy this whole thing is causing. If Celtic go 1, 2, 3 games without winning, or in the situation of last season where after January, Rangers fans couldn't believe they were, you know, dropping points against Kilmarnock, losing to Hamilton. So now it's really cranked up because Rangers obviously are. I think there's a steely determination about them, and they're putting the points on the board. But this is what Neil had to say, obviously, about the media criticism that he thinks is going on at the moment.
We're in October. Our form's been relatively okay, not brilliant. I'm aware of that. But for me to be called to be sacked, why? Where's the realism behind that? What for?
Well, and over and above that, I then went back to him and said, that I don't think too many people, Roughie, in a PR situation, the PR man just puts bad news down on your table. I mean, I remember the PR guy used to just cut the clippings of people who had a go at Martin O'Neill, and occasionally would call them. And the same thing happens with Neil Lennon, Roughie. The PR guy sits and goes, here, this paper's had a go at you, this guy, I've written this down, this is what was said to you on the radio station, this is what the telly said about you, there you are, digest it. They don't put down, by the way, there's a lovely piece written about how great a job you're doing. Nobody tells you great news. You don't get the pat in the back.
No, but that's what happens when you're at Rangers and Celtic. It's a siege mentality, and when it's going against you, you batten up everything, and the only way to change it is to win games, and he'll know that. But I think we all know Lenny. We all saw what he was like at Hibs. We saw what he's like. He likes to go out in the press. He likes to tell everybody exactly, what's happening in the dressing room and who he's not happy with, and what the players have got to do. And the media all buy into that because it's good copy. And I think just Neil's different for other managers. If he sees something that's personal, he'll react to it, and that's just his nature. The way he was as a player and the way he is as a manager, he won't suffer fools gladly. And he'll not sit there if he thinks somebody's having a personal go at him. He's not going to let it go. He's not going to walk away from it. He's going to put it out there and say, "Look here, I know who you are, and whether you like that or not, that's the way the guy is." And a lot of people like him for it. I mean, we like him for it because he comes out in pressers and he says it as it is. There's a lot of managers don't do that, but I get his position. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. How many games has he lost since the season?
He's lost the game to Rangers.
Yeah, I mean, come on. I mean, is that sackable in any other year? Of course it isn't. It isn't sackable. And in saying that, Celtic want to win the 10 in a row. There's no doubt about that. And the more games you don't win, the more hysteria is. And I've said it before, there are people who didn't want Neil in the job in the first place. I would think they are the guys who are just sitting waiting for something like this happening so that they can jump on the bandwagon. But Neil knows the only way he can put them away on the shelf is to win games. Doesn't matter what manager are, you've got to win games, and then it goes silent and you carry on with what you're doing.
Roughie, to be perfectly honest with you, I don't think, and not because anybody is in any way an apologist on here, but of every pundit we have on here, Charlie Adams, Steven Naismith, Hugh, Darren, Tam McManus, Alison McConnell, nobody has suggested on this show it's time for Neil Lennon to go. There will come a time, believe me, in 2 or 3 weeks from now, if Neil Lennon was to lose the next 2 or 3 games, we'd all be at the edge of saying, maybe he's got to go. Maybe he's not getting it. If they lost 2 or 3 games in the next month in that league, people would say it, and we would probably be all faced with the dilemma of looking at it and saying, is it time for him to go because the league could be gone? There's all sorts of different situations that can arise over the next few weeks, and that's just the punditry of it. But nobody said it on this programme. And Neil himself says he has got, even despite all this, and even despite coming out, he maintains he's got a sense of perspective on the criticism.
We're in October. Our form's been players getting singled out, players getting abused, players getting criticised. I think it's absolutely shocking. If that's the way of the modern world, I'm glad I'm not a player anymore, and I'm glad I played when I did 20 years ago. But it's all right, saying they have to be strong and blah, blah. They are strong. They've proved that time and time again. And I have every faith in the players that we will have another, stellar season. Even when we were winning games, people were criticising the performances. So you're damned if you do and damned if you don't. And relatively okay, not brilliant.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that break up there in that interview at the end there. But he says he's got a sense of perspective on it, Darren. I mean, he does have one point though. I mean, I thought they were far from exciting going into the Hibs game. The Hibs game for me was the only real highlight, but they were still winning games, and that's the way he's looking at it.
Yeah, when we've all said, Peter, when you're not playing too well, win games, that's a sign of a team. And I think listen, I've said that they've got the strongest squad. It was stretched for the Rangers game, because I think 5 or 6 who were out would have been in the team. There's no doubt about that. But that's the way it goes. But I think when you said, will we talk in the next week or 2 weeks if he loses the next 3 or 4 games? Peter, you could say that about any manager. Neil could go and win the next 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 games, and then we're not talking about anything. So I think you have to look at his record. Neil will always get stick because of the way Neil is. Neil as a player got stick. Neil as a manager, when he first started, when he was mad on the touchline, which I'm not criticising because I was mad myself on the touchline. Last year he calmed down an awful lot, and he was very, very calm on the touchline, and people said, well, what's wrong with him now? Now they've lost the game, and he's not getting up, shouting and bawling. They're saying, oh, has he lost it? Does he not know what he's doing? So Neil is one of those people, Peter, you know, that it doesn't matter what he does, it's always going to be news. And people are just, you just look at his record. Look at his record, and it stands up to most people's. So I think that's we should look at as well. And I think it's totally unjust what's happening. But as he knows, it's Celtic. It's 10 in a row year, and that's what's going to happen. And it's only the start.
Yeah, you'll never die by your result. Stephen Smith says, I wouldn't be happy with Steven Gerrard if his team played against Celtic and didn't have a shot in 93 minutes. And Dale Martin says, Roughie, you're deluded if you don't think there's trouble around Celtic. They're not playing well. It's that simple. If it wasn't for a few last-minute goals in games before, he would be gone. So there's lots of people with alternate views on this one. It's certainly got everybody's emotions. Now to the real one, which I think is open for real debate, because I hold my hands up and say that I think if he had an option, this is just my opinion, if he had an option, I think he would drop Shane Duffy, because his confidence is shot at the moment, and I look at the player and I think there are mistakes waiting to happen with regards to Shane Duffy. But again, Neil was having none of it.
I mean, he just needs to find his feet, really. It's been quite a tumultuous start for him. I thought before the international break, we won 8 games in a row and kept 4 clean sheets. I thought he was settling in quite well. He's just had a bumpy week. Nothing more, nothing less. It happens. I'm not happy about the treatment he's getting from certain quarters of the media. So I think that's totally unbalanced and unfair.
Well, this is the one area I disagree with him, Hugh. He said he's had a bumpy week. I think he's got 3 flat tyres.
Well, it's the last viewer was talking about, if it wasn't for last minute goals, etc. The narrative is if Celtic hadn't lost a last minute goal at Pittodrie, it would have been a different story this week. It'd be, Celtic are back. The champions shown that tough week. They go to Pittodrie, scored 3 goals, and come back with 3 points after going behind twice. The reality is the game is played until 90 minutes plus added time, and what it does, that added time exposes not only your strengths but exposes your weaknesses. And I would ask any Celtic fan, if at 3-2 up at Pittodrie they thought that was home and hose, Celtic were ready to close the game down, everything was going to be nice and quiet, and they were just going to play out. I don't know one Celtic fan who would have thought that on Sunday. And the reason for that is that defensively, they're not cohesive at the moment. They've got a centre half who's has to be bedded down. I think he's got a centre half as well who's used to being a real defensive centre half, defending his 18-yard box, having a very tough 4 in front of him who are there to defend. Playing against lying, what they call the low press now, sitting at the edge of his own penalty box and defending that like it's siege mentality. He's not comfortable coming out with the ball. He's not comfortable if he's left exposed wide with fast breaking players. That's not the kind of player he is. He just isn't that kind of player. And, he's certainly to blame for at least one of the goals at Pittodrie, maybe two, Peter. So
yeah,
he has to be scrutinised and he has to be criticised. It's not nobody's. You can't turn in performances like that. You can't be part of a team that loses 8 goals in a week and you're a centre half and not be criticised. It's as simple as that.
James Loughran has said, Peter, you're just and he uses a word that we're not going to use, you're just a cheerleader for Rangers. James, this is not really the channel for you. You need to go and watch Celtic reruns. We're trying to be objective about this. As far as the centre half's concerned, Shane Duffy, Lee Griffiths was defending him.
He's got the full backing of everybody in the changing room, the management staff, the coaches, everybody here. We know what the big man's all about. He's been playing in the Premiership for a number of years now. I mean, you don't play in the Premiership if you're not a good player. So, he's came up here and he's wanted to play games. And, he's had a difficult start, but no doubt the big man will turn it around.
Okay, enough about Shane Duffy. Will he turn it around? Only time will tell. We've all had our say on it. Celtic announced their financial figures, and there's a £13 million drop in the revenue. And of course, the profit before tax was £100,000. And that's an indication, really, I think, to be fair, Hugh McDonald, of the COVID impact on Celtic. And I think there's a number of clubs that will come out with financial figures that are painful, to say the least.
Oh, yeah. This is everybody's going to suffer real pain. The Celtic figures actually, in terms of what they've got in the bank in terms of cash and what they've got in borrowing facilities as well. They've got, they've increased their capacity to borrow as well, Peter. So I think they're probably as good as you could expect. But I think every club, whether you be Manchester United or Celtic or Liverpool or heaven forfend Barcelona. Barcelona's figures are disastrous at the moment as well. So it's COVID, Peter. It's, by the way, as well, those figures don't reveal the worst of it, Peter. The real figures will be the ones that come out at Christmas. The 6 monthly ones that are just after Christmas. Sorry, they'll be the really interesting ones.
Yeah, Art Monty says, Peter, why are we not talking about other teams possibly winning the league? Well, Art, that's because there's only 2 that can win it, unless you're going to tell us otherwise. Scott Brown has actually escaped any punishment for an alleged elbow on Scott Wright. So I think they were waiting on the compliance officer to see if he was going to press any kind of charges towards Scott Brown. So there are no charges to answer to on this case. Some people might have a different view on that, but that's what the compliance officer has revealed today at 3 o'clock. Now, we're going to hear from Robbie Neilson as well, because there's a fantastic semi-final coming up, Hibs against Hearts, which is magnificent. And the funny thing is, we've already had, you missed it, Hugh, but we've already had Roughie and Tam McManus. They're looking forward to this derby, and obviously, which way they're going to sway. I'm a little bit unsure. I'm a little bit unsure on what way Jackson's going to sway on this one too. But we're going to find out by the end of this programme on it. But we're going to hear from Robbie Neilson as well. But just before we talk about that, and we hear from Andy Halliday as well ahead of this cracking derby that I'm really looking forward to. The football chiefs are in discussions, Roughie, to try and get fans into some grounds for Friday fixtures on November the 6th. Now, for me, that's just a little chink of light and optimism that we can look forward to.
Yeah, well, I think we all can be assured there'll be nobody in Lanarkshire that'll be getting any people into the grounds. So it'll be well out of the region, and it'll be obviously dictated by what zone other teams are in. I think it's a sensible move. I think we all know how well controlled it is getting into games. I don't think it'll be large numbers that will get in, but it's a start if we can get it to go ahead. And I'm sure we'd all agree that fans in the games will make it a lot more exciting. It's absolutely murder sitting there watching, that no fans in there and that stupid canned music. We actually, at our game against Airdrie Saturday, our manager instructed them to turn it off. So it was turned off. It was an absolute... I mean, the noises that were coming through were just... Somebody was making a 5-yard pass and everybody, the whole crowd was roaring. It was just absolutely... It was an absolutely just... It was... The ball was going out for a corner and there was people cheering. So, he instructed the...
Normal, Roughie, is it
off. Sorry? The what?
Normal. That's
normal, yeah. No, so we turned it off, but you got to have fans in. You've got to, and I just hope when it does happen, then everything goes okay.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we all know we want fans in. I don't like it. I'm in Roughie's camp on this. I don't like this canned crowd effect on it. Some bigger clubs have it right because they've clearly got 3 or 4 options on the buttons, and if it's a close call, they hit the button at the right time and it goes ooh. But clubs who can't even afford to pay for a cameraman, Hugh, are not going to hire somebody to go ooh, are they?
No, that's quite. And then don't get a big cheer. They should have one button at Firhill, just one button. That's for the big cheer when somebody puts the ball up on top of the stand. That should be the only button. That's one of the great. It's one of the great Scottish football traditions. Sitting in the stand at Firhill and a big centre half lumping the ball on top of the stand and getting a big bump, and it coming back down again. And that should be the only button that's allowed in Scottish football.
Yeah, it's not great. And see, to be honest with you, Dan, I think it's more entertaining listening to the shouts from the players and the managers. I mean, to actually be able to hear them now. I mean, thank God Archie Knox is no longer a coach because Archie almost used to lose his voice. He was absolutely berating some of his players for either not tracking back or a poor pass. I would hate to have been someone who suffered from some kind of inferiority complex, Darren, if you had Archie Knox shouting at you at the side.
Peter or Jim McLean. By the way, you could hear wee Jim even when there was a crowd in. Never mind no crowd. But I was actually up at Arbroath Hearts on Friday night, Peter. It was just brilliant to be. Obviously, there wasn't many there. There was just a few scouts, and but it was just brilliant to be back at a game again and just seeing it live. It wasn't a brilliant game, but I just got an absolute buzz. But I'm the same. I have it on the channel that there's no sound. I prefer hearing the shouts and all that. I don't like all the fake noises and all that. And so, but as I said, we've said earlier, trying to get fans back in because the experience I had on, I never thought I'd be really excited to go to an Arbroath Hearts game with only being maybe 20, 25 people in the game, but it was brilliant to be there.
Yeah. Gary McGurn has actually come up with a great one there. He says, Peter, Jim McLean, get Bannon off. It was just a classic line from Jim McLean. Get Bannon off. He's having a mare. But there was a few more that he had down through the years. Although, when you talk to some of the managers, Davy Provan, Roughie, used to say he loved going out to the far side, away from the likes of Jock Stein or Billy McNeil's, so they couldn't hear their voice, and didn't have to listen to it. He says, but if it was the second half and you're at the touchline, it's an absolute nightmare.
Yeah, and you could throw wee Bertie into that as well. Wee Bertie was always in Bobby Houston's case. And with Bobby being a winger, obviously, in the first half of the game, he was always on the side of the dugout and he used to get absolute pelters. And the second half would come and he'd be away over the other side and he would be going, I can hear you. And he'd be dancing and jumping about because there was no response. He was really funny.
Although to be fair though, how could you be a winger in Bertie Hall's side when he's playing with Jimmy Johnson? I mean, everything else is downhill. It's as simple as that. Hearts against Hibs. I really do wish there were fans in. Darren, it's a game that I absolutely adore going through to see. But Robbie Nielsen speaking today says that he doesn't think not having fans will affect this big match.
Once you go out there, and even as a manager, when you're on a touchline, once that whistle goes, you kind of blank everything off anyway. I've the intensity's not quite there at times in the games, but I've not had any problem with it at all, to be honest. We are still involved in the game. Whether there's 50,000 there or 15 people there, I don't really think it makes a massive difference.
Oh, there's an interesting take on it. What do you think of that, Darren?
Yeah, and I do understand what he's saying. You just get caught up in the game, and I was watching him the other night, him and Dick having a few arguments. Dick was wasting a bit of time. So him and Lee were having a wee dig. But I see where Robbie's coming from, Peter, because yes, you do know the crowd's there, but you're caught up in your team, you're caught up trying to get a result, and that's the most important thing. But so I'm actually really looking forward to it.
Yeah, I mean, I can't wait for your prediction before we go off air as well. Of course, Andy Halliday is involved in this one, and the former Rangers player now strutting his stuff for Hearts in the middle of the park. Got a nice goal against Dundee as well, so his confidence will be obviously increasing week by week, and he's got that scent of silverware, and he's desperate to win something.
I've had highs, I've had lows. I've been proud of my career so far, but of course I would like by the end of my career to try and what I feel is a sort of major honour in Scotland. I don't feel as if I've done that yet, so of course from now to the end of my career I'm hopeful I can do that. It's going to be a tough ask, but I certainly feel with the quality we've got in the squad we're capable.
Yeah, I mean, you actually have to pinch yourself, Hugh, to realise, well, Andy didn't win anything. A major honour. That's what he's gearing up for. But you have to pinch yourself on the fact that they're one game away from the final.
Yep. I think this is a hugely fascinating. I'm really looking forward to this game, and it's one that I would have loved, not only fans to be in, but me to be in, Peter. There you go, be selfish. I would love to go to this game. And one of the reasons I'm really interested in it is that I saw in the bookmakers this morning, there's some bookmakers who've got Hearts slightly favourites, which I find really surprising because I've watched a bit of Hibs, obviously, on streams and on television this season, and I've really been pretty impressed with them. I think they're getting a good defensive unit together. Young Porteous, McGinn, Hanlon. I mean, you've now got Hibs having, had three defenders, three centre backs in a Scotland squad. You've got the boy Newell in midfield, who I think is really impressive. You've got young Doig, who left back, who I know Lewis Stevenson's injured, so he'll probably not play. And then up front, you've got young Kevin Nisbet, who again is already shown that he could. There could be another move in him. There could be, and I think there will be another move in him and up. So I think this is a really strong Hibs side. And then we've talked about Hearts already this season. If you look at the Hearts side as well, you've got a situation at Hearts at the time. We've got a championship side has got Steven Naismith on the bench. I mean, that's a strong side. So I think both semi-finals for different reasons are, huge matches this weekend, not just for the Scottish Cup final.
It's also got that added little twist, Roughie, because Celtic are involved in the match against Aberdeen. Rangers have got an away match against Kilmarnock. They could increase their advantage over Celtic. So there's a double whammy here. Aberdeen will smell blood because they know what they can achieve against Celtic from the evidence of what was on show at Pittodrie. And then you've got Rangers with a chance to enhance their advantage. So suddenly the heat is on.
Yeah, it certainly is, and you could imagine on Saturday they would up at Aberdeen there would be only one happy dressing room, and that would be the Aberdeen dressing room. I mean, when you seen Darren McManus, you thought they'd beat Celtic 3 or 4-0. That just shows you the importance, taking something off the old firm. And you're right, that means they're getting into this game with a bit of confidence. There's not going to be any fear. The players will know exactly, what they're up against, the strengths and weaknesses, as they've witnessed the week before. So no, they'll go into that game and think they can get something out of it. And you're right, the Rangers over the Rangers camp, that's exactly what the Rangers manager will be saying to his players. Let's forget about the two semi-finals. Let's get a bit of distance here. And that's exactly what they'll be trying to do.
It's one of those mouth-watering weeks in football. This is why we love the game. It'll all kick off on Monday's programme, I'm absolutely certain. Paul Baird, who clearly doesn't know your back catalogue, Roughie, has put out a message on our Facebook Live saying, no doubt Peter and Roughie will be tipping Hearts to beat Hibs. So clearly he hasn't been watching the last 3,000 shows, Roughie, where you've tipped Hibs to beat everyone, including Real Madrid and the Brazil 1970 squad. So, Paul, hang fire. I don't think you're going to be too disappointed shortly on that one, but certainly we're going to get your call on the games. Hugh, first of all, after we've heard all that's gone on there from Neil Lennon, I don't think the team talk from Derek McInnes has to be too difficult for the weekend's game. Look what you did on Sunday. Take it a step further.
Yeah, and you can see, look what he did last season when you come to Hampden against Rangers and you can beat them. I think they'll play very much the Aberdeen way. There'll be men behind the ball. I think they'll be very strong in set pieces. I think they're very physically and good in midfield, and Ferguson and McCrory. I think that's a really good, solid partnership. I think Cosgrove getting a bit of action into his legs. I think he'll start, all things being equal. So the ball will be getting from front to back pretty quickly, and quite rightly so if you've got somebody like Cosgrove. You've got very busy midfielders about. I think there's certain young Aberdeen players as well that have showed that they've got a bit of craft about them as well. So yeah, Aberdeen will go into this game with a bit of confidence, no doubt about it.
Yeah, I thought you were actually just going on a mazy, Roughie run there, Hugh. You were building Aberdeen up. You were talking about how great they were, and then the classic 3-0 Celtic at the end of it. I was waiting on.
Well, I'll tell you. I mean, if you want my predictions earlier, my prediction is that there'll be green and white ribbons on the cup at the end of this Scottish Cup campaign, and that I think Celtic and Hibs will get through at the weekend.
Okay, there's a prediction for you. Hugh McDonald says Celtic and Hibs. Grant Lumsden says it's going to be an Aberdeen-Hibs final, and Aberdeen will win the cup by 3-2. Hibs shall win versus Hearts, says Stevie, tops it all. And James McLaughlin says it's going to be an all-green final. So there's lots of people there who are going to talk about this and give us their predictions as well. Alison Carroll says Hibs 4-2. Well, listen, Darren, it's a tough one for you, son. You've played for Hibs, you've played for Hearts, and of course, and I think you are one of those people, apart from the fact that I'm sure I speak for everyone when you say that you're well and truly disliked by all the clubs that you've played for over a period of time, but then you sign for them. And then they like you. I mean, that's the key. That's the key, the way you've gone about your career. I mean, if I spoke to 1,000,001 fans who absolutely despised you, and then you signed for their club and they thought, boy, do I like that Darren Jackson. He gives it his all. So there can't be a draw today, Darren. You're going to have to give us your prediction.
No, Peter, like you went through the teams there. And obviously I've looked at both teams, and Nisbet and Doige and Boyle have started the season very well. But then I can look at Hearts. Hearts have 2 international strikers up front, and Boyce and Steven Naismith, and they have Jamie Walker. I think it's quite tight in the middle of the park. I think Hearts' weak is their centre half. I forget his name, Peter. The foreign boy. I think he is definitely a weak point for them. But Hibs have that as well. Yes, I think he's a weak point. But I think the other positions, Michael Smith, very strong internationalist. Halkett has done incredibly well, captain of the club. So and I think Hibs' 2 centre halves are very strong. You're not wanting this answer. I think it's too hard. I can't call it. I think it'll go to penalties. And I honestly think it'll go to penalties because Hearts are not a championship team. Hearts' squad is a Premiership club. And I've just said their 2 strikers are internationalists. So yes,
and who's
Hugh's
going
saying, well, you can't say who's going to win penalties.
Who's going to win the penalties?
Who's ever got the best spot to win penalties? It's going to go to penalties. Who's going to win it? I don't know. When it goes to penalties, you can't say.
Well,
you can't say, they're the favourites when it goes to penalties.
Roughie, he's up there with you. He really is. He's absolutely up there with you. Honestly.
I've explained why I think. I've explained why I think I'll go. Hibs are third in the league. They'll say, well, they're favourites because they're third in the league. So they must be better than that. But I don't think they are better than Hearts. I don't think there's much. There's not a lot between them.
I know you've explained it to your blue in the face. I've had 9 years of Roughie with this nonsense as well. At the end of the day, I'll tell you, this is the great joy about this whole thing, Hugh. I think the Jambos can cause an upset. I think they've got enough. I think I'm going for the Jambos to win it.
Numbers.
And I think it'll be a Celtic Hearts final.
Well, listen, for the first time, I think, in some time, you have 4 semi-finalists who will all have good prospects of getting. They'll have reasonable prospects of getting the final. There'll not be a team turning up at Hampden the weekend thinking, you know what, it's going to take something special or out the box for us to get to the final. You know, I think you see that because the circumstances surrounding the Aberdeen game, and certainly the circumstances surrounding Hearts and Hibs. I mean, yes, I'm going to go for Hibs. I've watched more of them. I think they're obviously further into their season than Hearts as well, which might be crucial. I just think that in certain positions as well, they've got players. I'm really, really impressed with Nisbet. My eyes have been opened by that laddie. You know, I just think he could, there could be something pretty special about him. I think at the back, they've got a situation we've talked before, that they've got strength at the back. But nobody's going to tell me, if Hearts win, you won't have to pass me the smelling salts if Hearts win. I just think that Hibs might just shake it. But obviously, my mazy run's going to end, Peter. Here, I'll stick with Celtic and Hibs, but won't be shocked if whatever happens.
Yeah, Roughie, from your own point of view?
No, I think Hughes hit the major point for me, that I think Hibs are more up to speed than Hearts. I think they've had far more competitive games under their belt. They've played Rangers, they've played Celtic. I think all Hearts have done is played a poor Dundee side in Arbroath, up at Arbroath. And the pace of the game will be really important. I think the Hibs players are flying at this precise moment in time. And as the guys have already said, I just think they've got too much firepower. And I think Hibs will win quite easy. I think it'll be 2-0, something like that.
Yeah, okay. Stuart Rankin says, I'm an Aberdeen fan, but don't get carried away. Celtic are still a dangerous team as well. But it'll be a good game. Come on, you Reds, says Stuart Rankin. And thanks for that, Stuart. Good to get everybody's opinion on this. Aberdeen fans, Hibs, Hearts as well. Lots of people giving us their thoughts for this. And I think Joseph Stoddart just at the wind-up because he said Duffy for an own goal. I think that would just cap off his week, by the way. Shane Duffy's certainly, I think this will be the toughest time he has ever witnessed in football. Roughie, we started at the top end of the programme talking about the lad. He's 28, he's big enough and man enough, he gets paid enough money. This is a week where I think a number of teammates will explain, and it's the same for every team in the semi-finals. This is a week when you realise what it's like to play for a really big club. Never mind your Brightons, and if you give away a goal at Celtic and Rangers, and you know all about it.
Yeah, I mean, you just ask any player that's played down in England. I think Darren's touched on it before. The guy seeing you at Newcastle, they just wanted to come up to a Celtic Rangers game. They just wanted to come up to experience it. But when you come up and you actually sign the dotted line, you get a realism of what it is all about. We know Shane Duffy's family are all Celtic supporters. You know, he's always been a Celtic supporter. You know, that's a weight. You know, if you're not playing well, you want to do well for your family. You want to do well. You've waited so long. But look, this guy's a quality player. He's not been down in England, and he's not been playing for his national side for a long time. If he's not a good player, things aren't happening. I blame it on the back four or the back three. You could pick anybody in that back three or back four and give them the same abuse as what Neil Duffy's getting, because I don't think any of them have justified themselves at all. So you've just got to play yourself out of it and appreciate that you are a quality player.
You know, there's one every game. There's one every show. Did Neil Duffy not play for Morton? I just want to check. Shane Duffy. But Shane. Nevertheless, yeah, I mean, I know you say that, Roughie, and I'm not going to. I think we've had our opinion on the boy. There's no use in, going over the top on it. If he is indeed going to prove himself, he's going to have to get his act together quickly. This is the weekend for big players to pop up and score a goal that excites the fans and sends them on to a Hampden final, which I think we'd love to see fans at. Ian Noble, who's a big Dons fan, says Dons polished the open top bus last week. I like it from Ian Noble, Hugh. I didn't know that, but I mean, that's the joy of it all. I mean, you look at Hibs when they won the Scottish Cup, all the way down Princes Street, down towards Leith. Scenes of green and white was absolutely magnificent. Hearts win the cup in '98. The bus, struggling to get to Gorgie. I mean, that's the joy of it all. Aberdeen, straight up Union Street with a red and white. That's the joy for, those fans. And we've only just witnessed it with Celtic winning the treble, Hugh, where the bus was coming through the Gallagate.
Yeah, I mean, what you've got in these semi-finals, and you can't over-egg it. Honestly, this is beyond exactly what you got in this is great intrigue and fascination. If the favourites win it, and Celtic are still the favourites, you've got a quadruple treble, which is history. If any of the other teams win it, you've got history as well. Perhaps, I would suggest as well, most importantly for Aberdeen, because since the demise of Rangers in 2012, Aberdeen have been the team, especially when the Rangers were in the lower leagues, that were pushing Celtic, but they never got that. And we know they won the League Cup, but they never got that Scottish Cup one over the line where the likes of St Johnstone and Inverness did. And I think that rankles with Aberdeen fans. And you know them better than I would be surprised if it didn't slightly rankle with Derek McManus as well, that there's not a Scottish Cup there. So the whole thing just drips of real intrigue. It's just four really, two top semi-finals. I'm really looking forward to it the weekend.
Yeah, Callum Dillery has really put the tin lid on it for anybody getting excited about it. Callum just simply says, there'll be no open bus. There's COVID. Get a grip of yourself. Yes, Callum, how to put an absolute dampener on it. I wasn't suggesting for a minute there would be an open top bus, Callum. I was just reminiscing about what happens with teams out with Celtic and Rangers. Sorry about that, Callum. I know the open top bus this time will just everybody going and waving, and there'll be tumbleweed as there's nobody in the streets. I absolutely get it, but nevertheless, thanks for pointing it out anyway, Callum. That certainly flattened our excitement. Although, to be perfectly honest with you, were just talking about it there. You're talking about getting excited about going to games, Darren. I'll tell you, thank God they didn't let anybody in to see Burnley against Tottenham last night, because I was sitting on the couch watching it without the crowd noises, and I thought to myself, I wonder if there's a Netflix show I could watch right now. The only thing I was waiting on was them bringing on Bale. I just wanted to see somebody exciting on the... Harry Kane's top drawer, but I wanted to see Bale.
Peter, I actually didn't see the game, but did you see the Wolves Newcastle game? Oh, I didn't watch that. It's the worst game I've seen. So if last night was worse, delighted I didn't see it. I was probably a little jinx because Brecon train at Little Kersh, just along the road from me, and I went along to see Simon and Mark Wilson, and they've obviously been sacked today. So I think it might have been a.
Kidding me on it. Have they been sacked?
Yeah,
that's a bit hasty, is it not?
Last night, so disappointing. Good to see them. But so I didn't see the game, but the Newcastle Wolves game was abysmal, honestly.
He's a noiser. He's a noiser.
That must have been a near-jerk. That's a near-jerk reaction for the board, is it not?
Yeah, absolutely. 2 games, by the way. 2 games and they sacked them. I mean, honestly, a 7-0 thumping in the League Cup, and then a loss at the weekend as well. 2 games and they were sacked. I mean, you couldn't make it up. It's absolutely outrageous, but nevertheless, I'm sure they'll find something else. The SFAF today confirmed the format for the 2020-21 Scottish Cup with revised competition rules as a result of the ongoing coronavirus pandemic. So this is interesting stuff coming out now with regards to how it's going to be condensed as a competition. So there'll be fewer rounds than normal. It will begin with the preliminary round on the 28th of November, the removal of replays for all matches, which I think is a good thing anyway, with the outcome of any drawn match being determined by extra time and penalties if required. The entry point of clubs to the competition and the number of ties in each round, the requirement to attempt to reschedule any postponed match in the preliminary rounds 1 and 2 during the first midweek of the original match date. So there's the changes just been announced. We always like something to get, either a statement or a little bit of a news release for you. The number of substitutes permitted in a match will revert back to 3, with an additional 1 permitted in any period of extra time. So changes, Hugh. I like the fact that there's no cup replays.
Absolutely, and I think that was a certainty. What Scottish football doesn't need at the moment is more games. I think the big clubs are probably on this one, Peter, just flexed their muscles a wee bit behind the scenes, because would there been a call for just 90 minutes and straight to penalties? That would certainly have increased the possibility of an upset. I think once you get an extra half hour, you would think the quality would tell, but pretty straightforward. No more games. Let's get this done as quickly as possible and as easily as possible. So no great surprise.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, just before we go, there's Champions League football tonight, which means that I think if I can somehow sneak it, Roughie, usually, I'll say, why don't you watch the programme you want to watch, and I'll sneak into this other room and watch the programme I want to watch. Have a look at the fixtures, you guys, and tell me which one you'll be watching if you can get away with it. Lokomotiv against Bayern, Atletico Madrid, Red Bull Salzburg, Shakhtar Donetsk against Inter Milan, Mönchengladbach against Real Madrid, Porto Olympiacos, Marseille against Manchester City, Atalanta against Ajax, and Liverpool against Midtjylland. I have to say, I might favour, Roughie, Marseille, Man City. I don't know about yourself.
Yeah, I was just going to say that myself. I think that will be an exciting game. We all want to see if Man City can get their act together. They've obviously lost some important players as well. So, no, I think that would be a good game.
Yeah, who do you think will win between Marseille and Man City, Darren?
I think Man City will win, Peter.
And we're getting thousands of Marseille fans are calling you a rat on here. It's unbelievable. We're coming in by don't go to see Marseille, by the way. You're in trouble.
I'm going up to see Bonus Junior's reserves tonight, so I'll not see the game.
Well, we'll have to tape. We'll have to tape. Hugh, could you tape it on your Betamax for him so that he gets a chance? Hugh, which one are you going to watch?
Do you know what, Peter? I might swither towards the end. This sounds really a bit nerdy. I might watch Atalanta versus Ajax if I can get that red button thing to work, because I just like the way Atalanta play. I really enjoy the playing, and I like Ajax usually are good to watch, aren't they? That means a bit of a nerd.
13 at the weekend, Hugh. So
that's right. So
they're confident.
Scored 13 at the weekend. It's a diddy league, that Eredivisie, to be honest with you. Let's not beat about the bush on that. Listen, if you want to, get onto our website, www.plzsoccer.com, and you can read up on the Neil Lennon situation. He's had a blast back at some of his critics, and rightly so. That's the name of the game. If you're not happy, get out there and say exactly what you feel. And Neil is no shrinking violet when it comes to having a pop back at anyone who is critical of him. It's fair game. That's the joy of it all. We've all got opinions on this. You can give us your opinion as well, how you think the semi-finals will go a little later on in the week. You can we'll hear from Stephen Gerrard, obviously, talking about the game against Kilmarnock as well to look forward to. And we will be in the Hibs camp tomorrow and Aberdeen to get the thoughts of the managers and players, all looking forward to it. Hopefully, with a bit of luck, we are trying at this moment to try and get someone to take the light that Roughie stole from Darren's house and put on himself and left Darren in complete darkness as just a silhouette in the background. But nevertheless, there's never a day goes by on this stupid COVID situation where I am not close to just scalping myself with a hammer. It's unbelievable, the madness that goes on with the COVID, with the Wi-Fi, with lights, you name it. It's mental. I can't wait till we're all back together so we can have a big rammy and a fight, Roughie, just on the couch within about 3 inches of each other. It'll be great, won't it?
Oh, you miss it. Absolutely miss it. I miss everything getting thrown about and people getting shouted at. As long as it's not me, I don't care who's getting shouted at. That's fine.
Absolutely. Anyway, on that note, don't forget, like, share and follow, and also subscribe as well. And if you want to win yourself some fabulous prizes, don't forget, we've got a fantastic competition going at the moment as well. And you could get your hands on some brilliant items. We will play that for you throughout this week and let you know exactly what you can get your hands on. But all I'm going to say to you is iPad, prints, T-shirts, they're all in this one fantastic prize. So with that in mind, keep your eye out for that. There'll be more from managers and players, more opinion tomorrow on the programme. Thank you to Darren, Hugh, Roughie, and from myself, Peter Martin. Thanks for watching. You could win all these fantastic prizes by entering our competition. If you like what you see, you can share it with your friends and you can follow us for all the latest breaking football news. Join the football family at PLZ Soccer on Facebook and you could win all these fantastic prizes.
Expect the best used car deals guaranteed. Visit arnoldclark.com.